Assalamu alaikum. You're listening to the New Beginnings podcast. No fluff, no holding back, just honest conversations about your journey as a new Muslim.
Brought to you by New Beginnings, a platform that aims to support new Muslims on their journey through Islam, from the Shahada and beyond. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to the New Beginnings podcast. I'm your co-host, Bilal Brown.
And I'm Amanda. Thank you all for joining us yet again.
So today we're trying something a little different. We're doing a live Q&A call-in on a topic I get asked a lot about, which is divorce.
So as you all know, we've covered marriage from several angles. We've done preparing ourselves, what to look for in a spouse, how to navigate the relationship, and challenges faced by both men and women in finding a suitable partner. But the fact is, sometimes no matter how much a couple prepares, a marriage just doesn't work.
Alhamdulillah, Allah has permitted divorce in Islam, unlike Catholicism and maybe some other religions. And while we should view it as a last resort, we should also educate ourselves about its basic rulings so that if we ever do need to deal with it, we can do so in an informed manner.
So for this Q&A, anyone with questions can join us live on Zoom, where you can ask Sheikh Bilal directly or anonymously by text. Okay, so while we're waiting for our guests to send a question, let's start with one of the questions I've been sent. So question number one, what does Islam consider to be acceptable reasons to divorce?
So, unlike some of the religions, like I mentioned, Islam has permitted divorce. It doesn't make sense for divorce to be prohibited because the couple come together due to the love that they have for one another or other reasons. And, human nature is that relationship may break down. There may be a lack of harmony between the couple. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran has permitted divorce. We know that the Messenger of Allah gave his wives, all of his wives were given the option to divorce. But some of them, but all of them, they chose to stay with him. We know that the Messenger of Allah also divorced Hafsa, who was the daughter of Umar ibn al-Khattab. May Allah be pleased with them. He divorced her and he took her back. So divorce is something that is permissible in Islam. The reasons may vary. There is a narration that mentions that any woman that asks for a divorce without any reason, that there's severe punishment for that. So generally it's, disliked. The scholars have said that, the basis of divorce is permissibility. There is a debate actually between classical scholars. Is the basis of divorce permissibility or prohibition? If the couple are in a normal, state, then there's no harm. And generally they say that it is permissible to divorce. However, circumstances may arise where, one of the two couples asks for a divorce. So one woman, she came to the Messenger of Allah, she got married, and she said that she was basically holding the corner of her garment, just a little corner of her garment, either to indicate that her husband was, not pleasing her in the bedroom, or he had some issues, with, that area. And the Messenger of Allah said, give your meher back and you can, have the divorce. So some women, they came to the Messenger of Allah for those reasons. We know that annulment as well. The scholars spoke about annulment of the marriage. For example, if the husband gets some type of contagious or terminal illness, or he loses sanity, or in the Maliki school, they expand it even further. If the husband is abusive, or he's for failing to give maintenance to the wife. So, there are lots of reasons, and it generally goes back to this harmony between the couple. So if, staying in the marriage is causing more harm than good, then, maybe it's time to move on. But ultimately, it's between, the husband and wife, to make that decision.
So I'm going to ask you to clarify on some points, actually, because I know these are terms that cause a lot of confusion in the community, and of course, especially for those who are new to Islam. A lot of us have no idea what these words mean. We have words talaq, we have khula, we have fasakh, and then you've just said a word, annulment, which one of these three is that? And I think also as well, the terms are not well understood. A lot of people I've heard who are currently looking for a spouse and are using these marriage apps and websites and things to find a spouse. And they will say that people have listed themselves, people who are previously married will variously list themselves as either divorced or annulled, and nobody knows what this means. So could you just in layman's terms, clarify the different ways that a marriage can end in Islam?
Yeah, it's a very important point, because there is a lot of misconception actually about what these terms mean, even by the people that use them in Arabic, and religious people as well. They don't really understand what they all mean. So the word for divorce in Arabic is talaq. It comes from a word which means to like shoot out or leave one's place, something when something leaves the place of something and fires off.
Is it like to cast?
They use it the same word for shooting a gun. To shoot a gun, it's like to fire off.
So like repelling, sort of.
Yeah, it's like this casting off. So the word for divorce is talaq. Talaq means divorce in Arabic. For annulment, so sometimes for certain reasons we can go back to the original marriage, which is called nikah or zawaj in Arabic, and say, this wasn't right to begin with. So annulment, the word in Arabic is fasakh, and that what usually happens through a court system, or we have Sharia councils here in the UK, so they would issue the fasakh, and it would be as if the nikah never happened. Okay, so when we speak about annulment, it's as if the marriage never ever happened. Khula is a word that's misused as well. So the definition of khula, they call it marital release. Some translate as marital release. Okay, so this is where the wife offers the husband a certain amount of wealth in exchange for a divorce. So it's in exchange for a divorce. So if she says, give me a divorce and I'll give you £500, or I'll give you my maha, the maha that you gave me back. That's what we call khula. So it's a way of the woman attaining a divorce, because Islam has given the husband the power of divorce unilaterally. The Quran says الطلاق مرتان فإمساك بمعروف أو تسريح بإحسان. That divorce is twice, and then either he keeps her in a good manner, or he releases her in a good manner. Then Allah says if he divorces her meaning for the third time, then she becomes unlawful for him. So it's based on a 3 strikes and you're out scenario. And again, there's massive misconceptions in the Muslim community about the way that divorce is conducted. There is a misconception that divorce needs to be said 3 times, all in one go, for it to be effective, which is incorrect and also prohibited for the husband to do it that way.
Yeah. We do have that question coming up in a little bit. That was actually one of the questions that was sent in. But I think before we get on to that, if we just sort of paraphrase what you've said already. So what we call talaq in Arabic is the man divorcing his wife.
Yeah.
Okay. The word khula then is the woman giving her husband something in exchange for him giving her talaq. So she's basically, for want of a better word, ransoming herself.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
okay.
That's exactly what it is. To say it's what we call a fidya, a ransom.
Okay.
One thing we need to clarify here is, because it might seem strange to people. Yeah. So in Islam, a woman cannot issue a divorce.
Now we will come to that point, because we will come on to that point later on, because that has also caused a lot of confusion. So the woman can give her husband something in exchange for a talaq. Okay.
Yes.
And then the
Yeah.
fasq is something that goes before a judge where it's deemed that the marital relationship, the marital contract itself has become so corrupted that it just doesn't exist anymore for whatever
Exactly.
reason.
Yeah.
So, but now in that case, so say, for example, in the case of an annulment, and again, coming at this from a convert's point of view, who may have come from a Christian background, where an annulment can only happen, to my understanding, if the marriage has actually not been consummated. So once there are children involved, you can't annul a marriage because the marriage has been consummated.
Right.
What about Islamically? Is the case true? Is that also the case in Islam? And I may be wrong about Christianity. That was my understanding. I was never very practicing as a Christian, but
Mm. Mm. Yeah, I think according to some imams, that would be the case. Definitely in Abu Hanifa, because he says the annulment is only related to the man's impotence and his ability to have sexual intercourse with the wife. So, he would definitely agree with that.
okay.
With the Maliki school, that would not be. Actually, I need to check. Actually, I'm not sure whether they consider it as a divorce or an annulment. I think most advanced scholars would probably agree with that. Yeah.
Okay. So going back to our questions then, does Islam say anything about the steps that a couple should take before deciding to divorce, such as counseling or mediation?
Yeah. So the Quran, speaks about this. حَكَمٌ مِّنْ أَهْلِهِ وَحَكَمٌ مِّنْ أَهْلِهَا, to take an arbitrator from her side of the family and one from his side of the family. So the Quran speaks about it a lot, to try to reconcile. Reconciliation is always the best, the Quran says. So yeah, definitely. And even when giving the divorce and separating, the Quran mentions, tasrihun bi ihsan. If you are going to go and do the divorce, then do it in a good manner. And there's actually an extra payment that the Quran speaks about. It's called the mut'a payment, that a lot of people don't know about, that the husband is supposed to give when he divorces his wife. So he's supposed to give her this extra payment as well, just to, appease her.
Okay. We've got somebody in. Sorry to interrupt you. We have somebody in the waiting room, so I'm just going to admit them. Okay, assalamu alaikum and welcome to the call. If you'd like to ask any questions, if you want to ask your questions live, you can put up your hand and do so after unmuting yourself, or you can type them into the chat. We are already in the swing of things and answering some questions, so feel free to just type your questions into the chat and let us know if you'd like to ask it live or not.
You can ask anonymously. Obviously, we will edit this. It's not going out live anywhere. So
just to continue, perhaps our guests are thinking of what they would like to ask, but just to continue on the point that you were making a moment ago, you did say that there is a payment due to the wife from the husband when he divorces her. Could you expand on this a little bit more? Because this is definitely something most people don't know about. Yeah, there are different views about when the payment should be made. Some scholars are restricted to on certain types of divorces where, it's before consummation and, or, something about the dowry was mentioned. But generally, they say it's recommended to give. It's recommended to give. So some, schools, they say it's just like a set of clothing or the equivalent value. It's something like that. Yeah. And it's according to the husband's financial capability. Okay, that's interesting. I think I have heard of that in passing, but not in great detail. So we have another question here. Well, it's again a very general question. What is the correct procedure for divorcing? Now, I'm going to assume that this is a question from a brother asking about what is the correct procedure for divorcing his wife? Because as we said, the divorce is the responsibility and the right of the man to do. So what is the correct procedure there?
like we said, a woman cannot issue a divorce in Islam. She can, get the divorce delegated to her, but it will ultimately be coming from the husband. So that's an important thing for us to remember. So the correct way to divorce is using a clear statement of divorce. It's recommended to have witnesses at the time as well. The scholars, they broke divorce into 3 different categories. So the best type of divorce, and then they have the good type of divorce or sunnah type of divorce, and then they have what they call talaq bid'i, which is an innovative type of divorce, which is sinful. So the best type of divorce, which is how the companions would practice, is that he divorces his wife in a time where she's not menstruating. He hasn't had sexual intercourse with her during that period of purity. And he says it once only. He only pronounces one statement of divorce. So there's a lot of things to bear in mind here. If she's on her period, then it would be sinful for him to divorce her at that time. If he has had sex with her and she hasn't had a period yet, it will be sinful for him to divorce her at that time. Okay, so he's, it's not something that he should just fire off rashly. He needs to wait till she's had a period, wait till she finishes that period, and now, okay, you can issue the divorce. And you do it, say, once, and then the woman will wait until what we call the iddah, which is just a waiting period, will end, which is generally 3 menstrual cycles. And once that's over, then the divorce will be complete.
So if he were to divorce her while she's on her menstrual cycle or in a period of purity where he has had relations with her, is that a valid divorce? Is she still divorced, or does he have to redo it once the conditions are met?
So it will still count. However, he is supposed to take her back and divorce her when she's had a period and complete again and do it properly. But in any case, it will still count. So that's according to the 4 schools and the majority of ulama. There are some scholars from the earlier generations. It's considered as a bit of an anomalous view. Do say that if it is done while she's menstruating, then it doesn't count.
And then it doesn't, so he would have to redo it in that case. Okay.
But it won't count as anything. But that's a very rare view. And the Shia school, they follow this view.
Okay. So now you did mention at the beginning of this question, when you started answering this question, you mentioned that the wife can have the right of divorce delegated to herself, but ultimately that's coming from the husband. Could you expand on this a little bit? So first of all, what does that mean to have the right of divorce delegated to herself? And second of all, if she has had this right delegated to herself, what is the process?
Sorry, I didn't finish off the way of divorcing.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Forget that. We'll come back to that then.
So, the second thing that's mentioned is the sunnah way. This is, again, he waits till, her period is over and doesn't have any sexual contact with her, and then he will issue the divorce. And now she will go into the waiting period, and then she will have a period, a menstrual cycle. Once that finishes again, he can say, I've divorced you again. And then she'll have another period. And once that finishes again, she will say, I've divorced you again. Okay, so that's the way they call the sunnah way of divorce. So in Surah Al-Talaq, it's a chapter named after about divorce, chapter 65 in the Quran. Allah specifically says, if you divorce women, فَطَلِّقُوهُنَّ لِعِدَّتِهِنَّ, then divorce them, according to their iddah. So this is called the sunnah way of divorcing, and that will be 3 divorces and a complete separation once she finishes the menstrual cycle. Okay.
Could you just clarify something about that, first of all? Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but just if I'm getting confused, I'm sure others are. So the Sunnah way is that he gives the proclamation, he gives the divorce verbally in a period of purity, as per the example that you gave earlier, and then waits for one menstrual cycle to give the second one?
Yeah.
Okay, so if he does that, what happens to the iddah when he gives the second proclamation and the third?
Nothing. It just carries on. So it just carries on from, but he's now issuing all three of his divorces.
I see, okay.
And it's becoming final.
Mm.
And that's why they didn't call it the best divorce, because one, there's no need to do it. And two, if you do it, then there's no chance of reconciliation. But if you say it once, then there's a chance of reconciliation. You can still get back together, even though the Quran says it's a sunnah way to do it. It's not really recommended to do it that way. And anything that is not according to these two methods, it's called an innovative divorce. So if he says, I divorce you 3 times, that's an innovative divorce according to all scholars. And there's not all imams agree on this. Or if he divorces her while she's menstruating, it's still sinful and innovative for him to do it that time. There's all these small differences about whether it occurs or doesn't occur, or whether it occurs as one or three. But all scholars agree that it is prohibited and sinful for the husband to divorce in such a manner.
And this is interesting because I know the issue of what they call the triple talaq, the 3 times in one sitting divorce, is quite controversial in a lot of communities. And I think that's it could be a little bit too complex for this podcast, as we're aiming this at people who are very new to the topic. So perhaps that's something that can be expanded on. I don't want to interrupt you again, but are we ready to move on to the question about the delegated divorce then? Okay.
Yeah, we can move on, yeah.
Okay, thank you. So the question was, you did mention that the wife can have the right of divorce delegated to her, but it's still ultimately from the husband. Now, number one, what does that mean? How does she get the right of divorce delegated to her? Second part would be, if she needs to use this delegated right, how does she do so?
In terms of delegated divorce, how does a wife obtain such a divorce? She can just ask her husband. So it can be done actually before the marriage, according to the Hanafi school, or at the time of marriage, according to other schools, or even after the marriage, according to everyone. So she can just ask her husband, and the husband will say, I have delegated you the right to divorce yourself anytime you wish. So if he needs to make it, unrestricted to any particular time. So anytime you wish, you have the right to divorce yourself. That's it. So she can get that in writing. Or another way is to make it conditional. So, if I slap you, if I abuse you, then you have the right to divorce yourself anytime you wish. If I fail to fulfill your rights, if I go insane, or if I stop paying you maintenance, then you will have the right to divorce yourself anytime you wish. Okay, so there are several ways it can be delegated. If he doesn't want to give his wife that responsibility, then it could be delegated to a third person. So the wife could say, okay, if you don't want to give me the right, give it to my father then, or give it to the imam, or my sheikh. So we will say that I've given your Sheikh Ahmed, the right to divorce, to issue the divorce if, I abuse you in any way, shape or form, anytime he wishes. Or they can make a contingent upon the decision of a Sharia council. So it's very, very flexible, the delegation of divorce. iPhone, do you have a question? Whoever's on the iPhone?
I've also posted a message into the chat to say if anybody has any questions. So just while we're waiting to see if anybody has any questions they want to pop into the chat or to unmute themselves, they can put their hands up and unmute themselves freely.
So we also asked, how does she actually initiate the divorce?
Yes.
So it's very easy. She will say, I have divorce myself. That's it.
Are the same conditions stipulated that she can't be menstruating? They can't be in a period of purity during which there's been intimacy and so on?
Yeah. So it should be done at a proper time as well. But it will still count regardless of whenever she does it.
Okay.
And as soon as she does it, she will go into the waiting period.
Okay. We do have a question in the chat, which is asking, Walaikum salam, if there is abuse and the husband refuses a delegated divorce, does she have the right to then ask for a divorce? So if she's married to a man and he's abusing her and he's refusing to divorce her, presumably, and refusing to give her the delegation, refusing to delegate the right to her.
Yeah, with the delegated divorce, this is something that needs to be in place before the abuse happens. So it's not like he abuses her and then, he says, I'm going to delegate divorce. It's a safeguarding measure that the wife will ask, maybe before they get married as well. It might be a separate document before they get married, or at the time of marriage. It might be an appendix to the marriage contract. So it's something that she has in place before any abuse or anything happens. If any abuse occurs later on, then absolutely. Like we said, there were women who went to the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and they asked for, the divorce to be issued simply because the husband wasn't satisfying them in the bedroom. That's enough of a reason. So, abuse is much worse. So
if I could ask everybody to keep yourselves muted unless you're speaking, please. If you would like to speak, please just do raise your hand ahead of time, or you can also put things into the chat if you'd like to ask a question. That's fine too. Yes, so Sheikh Bilal, we were talking about the delegation of divorce. So the process is that she just says that she is divorcing herself from him in that case. And then one of our participants asked, what if the husband is abusing her and he won't give her that delegated divorce? Now, and I think I'm just going to make an observation here. It's very interesting that you said it has to be in place before there's any sort of abuse, because I can imagine several scenarios in which a husband would manipulatively say to his wife, I'm giving you the right to divorce yourself, as a way of putting it on her. There are problems, and he says to her, well, you can divorce yourself any time, and thereby manipulates her into staying, because that's a heavy burden to put on a person.
It's like a reverse psychology.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. Which is, I think it's important for us to be aware of that, these are safeguardings that need to be in place from the outset, ideally, or before any real problems appear. Now, there is a question in the chat again. If the wife has chosen to be separated from the husband, but she is delaying the divorce due to not having the money for the divorce, then is she sinful for the period of time when she is not meeting his needs?
So these scenarios, they're usually very complicated. Obviously, this is just a question, but there's always going to be two sides to the story, and a lot more details that need to be looked at. With your complex issues, it's always best to go to a Sharia council or some arbitration, or an imam if they have time, to get them to hear both sides of the story and then make a decision on that. We don't know the full story here, so whether she's sinful or not just depends on the particular situation that she's in. And really, a woman shouldn't have to pay for a divorce. The scholars, mentioned that actually. Divorce is something that the husband has, and he can give to his wife without any payment. So the origin is that she shouldn't really have to pay to obtain that divorce, especially if he's the one causing the trouble. Then he shouldn't take any of the mahar that he gave her or any money for that. But if she's the one causing the trouble, then yeah, that's a different thing.
But we do know
Oh,
that the Sharia councils charge sometimes very high fees in the hundreds of pounds for a woman to obtain a divorce.
Yeah, so with the Sharia councils, we're actually working on something actually now that's where it will ease the burden on the Sharia councils. So Sharia councils are made up of imams and scholars usually, and they are very, very busy already without having to deal with marriage problems and, looking at complex cases as well. And, I know many of the Sharia councils actually in the UK and people are on them. They're stretched. They're stretched. They don't have the resources to deal with the number of cases. What is it? 4.5 million Muslims in the UK. And how many Sharia councils are there? How many imams are there to deal with so many cases? 48% of marriages in the UK end in divorce. I don't know what statistics they are in the Muslim community or generally around the world, but we're thinking about that. And not all of them are going to be amicable as well, and they need. So they don't have the resources to deal with all of these cases usually. So, even if you pay, it will take a long time. They need to investigate. They need to, I've dealt with cases. I'm on the Sharia Council as well, but I don't really have time to dedicate to it. And I've contacted the husband because his wife has sent the case in. And sometimes they say, oh, who are you? So I don't believe in Sharia Council. Why should I adhere to this? You don't have any validity in these type of things. And then constantly trying to message them and get in touch with, trying to find out, if the husband's, absconded as well, and just trying to get hold of him is a challenge that, it takes up your time and trying to get all the full details of the case. So yes, they will be expensive. And that's because, we're stretched.
One thing that I will say to this, and this is something that I've seen in our communities time and time again, is there are many women who will just not do it, just not go to the Sharia councils because they think that the fees are too high. But if the fees are too high and you are in genuine hardship, and you say to the Sharia council, look, this is my case, this is my evidence of an abusive situation or whatever the situation is, and these are my finances, many times they will reduce the fees or even waive the fees in some cases because they're not a money-making venture at the end of the day. It's just to cover their own costs. And if you genuinely can't pay for it, there should be no barrier to you obtaining whatever justice needs to be obtained, really. And I find this especially, there are certain Sharia councils who will do this. There are others who they simply can't or they don't, for whatever reason, but definitely do. If one won't help you, another one might. So it's always worth asking, as long as your need is legitimate and not just that you don't want to pay it. Because I think, too, what we should also remember is that the fees that people pay to Sharia councils also go towards helping them do other work as well. So now we have another question here, actually. This is sort of very related to what you've said there, Sheikh Bilal, about the husband saying, who are you? And I don't recognize you. So one of the questions I was sent earlier was from a sister who said that the term that she is, I divorced my husband, and then in brackets, khula. So she obtained a khula, or what she thinks is a khula, what she's calling a khula, from a Sharia council. But he refuses to recognize it. Do I have to go back to him? So I'm going to guess that this isn't actually a khula based on what you've said earlier. It's probably something else. Because earlier you said the khula is a wife giving her husband something in return for a talaq.
Exactly.
But she's obviously been given something on a piece of paper saying that the marriage is dissolved. So this is what?
Yeah, exactly. So this is where people get confused.
Could you clarify on this? Oh, we have somebody else coming into the waiting room. But yeah, if you could just clarify on this. And what is this likely to be? And does he have the right to say, no, you're still my wife?
Yeah, so this isn't a khula in the Sharia terminology of the word, but people use this word khula to mean, I went to a Sharia council and obtained a divorce from them. So it's not a khula because, the husband probably hasn't agreed to it. But what the Sharia council will do is they will issue a divorce, if the husband has been abusive or he's not paying maintenance. So maybe he's gone absent, he's not responding. So they may issue the divorce. So in some schools, they say, if the husband goes missing for 2 years, then, the wife can obtain a divorce from the judge, or if he's been abusive. So this is a divorce. This is just a straightforward divorce. It's not you giving the husband something in exchange for the divorce. Rather, the Sharia panel, we don't have Islamic courts here as well, or Muslim courts. So if you were in a Muslim country, you would go to court, and the court there would issue the divorce, okay, just like you would go to the courts here. And if you've just had an Islamic marriage, the nikah, then it won't even be recognised by the courts here. Even just getting a divorce through the UK secular courts, you have to pay for that. And that's probably more expensive than what our Sharia councils are asking for, actually. It's going to cost you a lot more than what the Sharia councils actually ask for, which is just, a nominal, it's a donation, really, just to cover the costs. They're not making any money on that. So what the Sharia council will do, they will take the place of the judge, issue the divorce. So they're acting like an Islamic judge, but we're not in a Muslim country. So this is a controversial system amongst Islamic scholars and schools. Most of the schools, they don't allow anybody just to take the place of the judge. The Maliki school has detailed. There's some details in the Maliki school, that mentions that we can have what's called Jama'at al-Muslimin, a group of Muslims. So these are, leaders in the community. And there's no number on it, by the way. It can be 2 or 3 or more. They just need to be people of authority in the community. They're in a non-Muslim land, and they will take the place of the Islamic judge, and they will issue divorces, etc. Somebody who's not a Maliki, or somebody who just disagrees with it, they may say, well, I'm not following that school of law. But for you, if you have agreed to follow the procedure of those courts, then it would be valid for you, even if the husband doesn't think that it's valid. That's his problem. Why didn't he respond to the courts? Why didn't he bring his case forward?
So just to clarify, sorry, Sheikh, if the woman has applied to this Sharia panel for a divorce, even if the husband doesn't recognize it, but she does, and they grant it, she's divorced.
Yeah, of course, yeah, in her view.
Okay. I think that's important, because a lot of people would think that she doesn't have the right to do that, that it's not her business, that it's not her place to divorce herself, that he's the only one, that it's only the husband who can do that. There are quite a few very deeply entrenched notions within our communities about what women can and cannot do in terms of releasing themselves from bad situations. And so
as long as the Sharia court has followed the proper procedure, then it will be valid.
Okay.
If there's been something wrong in the procedure, which there has been, to be honest with you, in the past, if our brothers come up to me, like, I just got a letter through the door, and my wife's divorced, they didn't even get in touch with me. I was like, did they contact? He's like, no, they just sent this letter. So the way it's supposed to happen, which will be valid according to all schools, is that they act as what we call a hakam, which is an arbitrator. So they don't need to stand in the place of the judge. So it's just that both for the husband and wife, they will agree that whatever ruling or whatever you decide will be binding upon us religiously. So if both the husband and wife, they agree to that, then khalas, that's fine. We don't have a problem here. But when the husband is refusing, what the Sharia court will do is they will write to him. They will contact him. If he doesn't reply after 3 times, or he keeps refusing, to come to the court, or refusing to engage, and he doesn't, put his case forward, after a certain amount of time, they will say, look, it's been, so many months, you've not been giving your wife maintenance, and we're going to issue the divorce now. And then they'll send him a letter, and the wife a letter that the divorce has been issued by, whatever Dewsbury Sharia Council or whatever.
Do Jazakallah khair for explaining all of that. Okay, so the next question that we've been sent in, we keep seeing the same questions again and again and again, Sheikh. It's heartbreaking, really. So somebody here says, my husband has told me multiple times, multiple meaning more than 3, that I'm divorced, but then claims it didn't count because he was angry. At what point does I was angry so it doesn't count actually mean something? How angry does a person have to be for his words and actions to not count?
Yeah, so it's a common excuse. One of my teachers in Yemen used to say, if you're angry, why don't you jump out the window or headbutt the wall or something? Why divorce? Doesn't make any sense. I'm angry, so I divorced my wife. If you're angry, go and smash your head against the wall.
And also, I mean, it also bears mentioning that people don't divorce when they're happy.
Exactly. It's not
not that happy and angry are the only 2 emotions in the human emotional spectrum, but people will be angry. It doesn't instantly mean that they can say, "Oh, you're divorcing." It doesn't mean anything. So at what point does it, in terms of legal definitions, at what point does a person anger negate what they say?
Yeah, so it's not really something that is considered when the husband is giving a divorce. Okay, so his intention is very, very important here. So yes, you're angry, but you divorce your wife. Would you go and, for example, go and stab somebody and say, "Oh, I was angry, so you can't blame me for doing it, and I shouldn't be responsible for that." It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So the scholars have actually discussed this anyway, the classical scholars. They say the only time we will actually consider anger is if the person has become so angry that he has no idea what he's doing. So he's literally gone into a state of insanity where he doesn't even recognize the sky from the earth. Okay, you can't distinguish between a male and a female. He's that angry.
So fairly extreme.
So it means that he's totally lost the plot, basically. So if you got that angry where you lost your mind completely, where you had no idea what you were doing, yes, you could make a case, but that would need some professional to actually make a judgment to say, yes, this person did reach that level of insanity because he was so angry and he had no control over what he was saying, and he ended up saying divorce. And I think it would be very, very rare for that to happen.
It sounds akin to if somebody pleads not guilty by reason of insanity in a court of law.
Yeah, exactly. It's an insanity plea, yeah.
It's an insanity plea, essentially. Okay, so men who say this, they don't actually, well, and women, I'm sure, say this as well. I was angry, I didn't know what I was doing. That's quite a claim, isn't it?
It's a big claim, yeah.
It's a big claim, and we should all be very careful of it.
It's just like slapping your kid and say, "Oh, I was angry, so I'm not going to be responsible for that." No, you have to control your anger.
Absolutely. SubhanAllah. Somebody's put a question into the chat. Jazakumullah khair. So this person has said, if there are children involved, does the wife have a right to remain in the marital home for the benefit of the children? Or does the husband have the overall right to say she has to leave and find somewhere else to live if he was saying it is his house? How are the living arrangements legally arranged?
Yeah, if it's his house, if he has ownership of the house, she can stay there until Idda finishes. If she doesn't have any ownership of the house, then she doesn't have any right to stay there. With children and child custody, that's a separate issue. So no, she won't have an automatic right to remain simply for the benefit of the children if a divorce occurs. And this is why it's so important for women. If you are forfeiting your right to work and own your own property and have your own money, if you're forfeiting that to stay at home and look after the children, then make sure you get something in writing where it says that you are compensated for all of those years that you stayed at home looking after the children. You will have 40% or 50% of the house or whatever that you're compensated, or a wage or a salary that you would have had, in the event of divorce for all of those years. So if she's, foregoing a 30k salary every year to stay at home till the children are, 10, 11, that's 10 years of salary that she's foregoing. So, it's very important for women to have something in writing that clearly states that. And men as well, it's not just women. Sometimes it happens, the other way around as well, that the woman is financially, what we call rinsing, rinsing the husband, for his money, and there's nothing in writing about who owns what and who has shares of what.
What about, though, in cases where neither one of them owns the home? I mean, I think we need to be quite realistic about this. Statistically speaking, the Muslim community in the UK, many people in the Muslim community in the UK live below the poverty line. Many Muslims are on benefits. And I'm not saying this to blame anybody. It is just the situation, how it is statistically speaking. There are many people living in public sector housing that they don't own and will never own. So in the case of these people, if they end up divorcing, neither of them own the home. So what happens? Who has more right to stay in the marital home in that case?
It's a good question. I think the UK court will decide. If you're in the house, then from what I know, even if a divorce has happened, it's according to UK law. But if you still have a right to stay in the home. So either if you have a divorce, it doesn't mean that you have to leave your home immediately. So if you don't, neither of you own the home. Even if one of them owns a home, you have what they call like squatters' rights anyway. So if you're already in the home, even if the other person owns the home, they can't kick you out. Really, you still have a right to stay there. So don't leave the home. If you don't have anywhere to live.
As long as
it's safe to stay as well. Yeah. This is the problem, you see. If it can become a very difficult or toxic environment to stay in, and it might be draining upon you to stay in that home, or there might be some abuse going on where you can't stay. So every case needs to be looked at individually, I think, for this.
This person has actually asked a follow-up question. They're saying, so just to clarify, if the home is only under the husband's name, but the wife has financially contributed, is there anything in Islamic or UK law that says she has a right to the house? I would say to this, document every penny if you're contributing to the ownership of the house.
No, they won't. Not in Islamic law, not in UK law. So unless you have something in writing, where it's an agreement, it won't work. Not in Islamic law, not in UK law.
Or in UK law. Everything should be documented, isn't it?
Everything needs to be documented. And, if you go to a solicitor, they want 10% of the house.
The solicitors do? Oh, gosh.
Yeah, so they look at the value of the house and say, well, you need to pay us, 10%.
I see. That's their weight. That's their cut to pay their.
Yeah.
I see. Interesting.
It becomes very expensive, and then you both end up losing out.
So basically, in order to answer this person's follow-up question, is that unless it's documented, there's no recourse either Islamically or in state law. So ensure that everything is documented and witnessed, basically.
Yep. Yeah, just have it in writing.
Get your name on the deed. Okay.
Yeah, get your name on the house. Even if your name's on the house, it doesn't really prove anything, but it will be a lot stronger if you do have to go to court. But have something in writing that clearly states that you own X percentage of this house. Okay. If we divorce, then that percentage is mine. Or for the time period that I'm not working and forfeiting my right to work, then I will be compensated this much in the event of a divorce. So get that in writing, get it signed by the husband, maybe in front of witnesses as well.
We have another question in the chat. Again, quite a common question. If the woman remarries, so if a couple divorces and the woman remarries, does she lose the right to the children if they are over the age of 7? So this is a custody question, post-divorce question.
Yeah, so custody issues. So the scholars have discussed the child custody, and the reality is that a lot of these rules were not black and white in relation to child custody. They were written rather as guidelines for the judge to decide. So with child custody, if we were in a Muslim country, it would always go to a judge anyway, and the judge will decide what's best for the child. And the juries, they speak about everything being in the best interests of the child. So what they said is that the mother is the first one that will have the right to child custody if they're at a very young age. Why? Because they need the mother more at that age. They need the mother more at that age. But when they become more independent, then they need the father. The father needs to teach them a trade, like carpentry. This is what they mentioned, carpentry, or being a blacksmith, okay, or, horse ride, whatever. Okay, that doesn't really exist in our day and age. You don't go to your dad to teach you how to be a carpenter anymore. So those meanings are quite lost. If the mother remarries and the children are still young, then the scholar said it will go to her mother. So it will go to the next female in line. So while they're still at a very young age, they'll always say the child needs to go to the female relative. And the reason why they said if she remarries, unless she remarries somebody who's a relative to the child, is because that stepfather will not have the same amount of compassion and care for the child. Okay, so they're always looking out for the best interest of the child. If the father's abusive as well to the child, then that's another thing. So all of it needs to go to the judge. The judge needs to decide. When it comes to child custody matters, it's not a black and white matter.
It seems also from, what you've just said about how the stepfather wouldn't have the same level of compassion for the child. That does feel quite culturally contextualized as well, because there are, there are some cultures where step-parents just don't have, the evil stepmother trope and all of that is quite common. And yet there are some cultures in which divorce and remarriage is quite widely accepted. And so stepchildren, step-parents aren't seen as that big of a deal. And people have more of it takes a village to raise a kid mentality. So, yeah, like you said, it is very... Depends on the context.
Depends on the context of culture, yeah. So it's a case-by-case basis. There are no blanket rulings in relation to child custody.
I think that is important, because that is something that is used to dissuade women from seeking a divorce in many cases. Is, you'll lose custody of your children. Islam gives custody of the children to the man. This is something you hear time and time again, and it's just simply not the case, is it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Unfortunately, again, with child custody, I will say, again, get it written down. Get something in black and white that says, if we divorce, then we will have custody 50-50 or whatever, or 60-40 or 80-20, or that will be the custody share. Get it in black and white before it all, occurs.
Before you need it.
Before you need it, yeah. It's just a safeguard. Obviously, when we're getting married, we don't like to talk about divorce or even think about divorce. Even though, like we said, almost 50% marriages in the UK, they end in divorce. But when you're getting married, you're just in love and you want to get it done, and you're not thinking about it. And the imam at the mosque isn't going to remind you of any of these things either.
So the next question on our list. This is a little bit complicated, so I'm trying to drill down to what the actual question is. The person has said, my husband has abandoned me, and I've not spoken to him in over a year. I know he's alive. He has married again and has a child. My aunt says that, and I quote, because it's haram for him to be away from me for more than 4 months, I'm automatically divorced, and she wants me to marry her son, who is my cousin. Can I do this? This is a roller coaster, but I'm just going to try and extract the actual question is she still married to the man who has abandoned her a year ago and married someone else?
Yeah, so...
Although there's been no divorce, he's just abandoned her. He's left her for more than 4 months. I'm not sure where this 4 months things comes from, but, if you could shed some light on this.
Yes, so this is another misconception that is a bit widespread in the Muslim community that I've heard from, several people as well. If my husband is away from me for 4 months or more, am I automatically divorced? Like, no, you're not. So I don't know why but I think it comes from a misreading of the verses in the Quran that speak about Ila. So Ila was, they call it like swearing abstention. So it's like swearing an oath not to approach your wife. So the Quran speaks about this type of oath. الَّذِينَ يُؤْلُونَ مِن نِسَائِهِمْ. Those that swear this oath in relation to their women, not to approach them for 4 months or more. They need to do the kafara and then take their wives back. Otherwise, the divorce will happen automatically. So this has got nothing to do with the husband being absent or marrying again. So unless he swears an oath that I'm not going to approach my wife for 4 months or more, then this ruling doesn't apply here. They will be married until he actually issues a divorce. So again, I will say, we spoke about delegation of divorce. If your husband goes missing or he runs off with another woman, then have that written down somewhere in a contract that if it does happen, then you will be divorced automatically, or you actually, or you at least have the right to issue the divorce yourself at any time you want. So it's important to have these clauses as safeguarding measures in place.
I know that you have done other sessions about the clauses that can be put into marriage contracts and so on, but I think it might be an idea just to very briefly touch on it. You can put a clause in that your husband delegates you the right to divorce yourself. You can put a clause in that you have the right to divorce yourself if he does certain things. Mm-hmm. That includes if he takes a second wife.
Yep.
Unless you agree to it ostensibly.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's important as well for everybody to understand.
So you can access the New Beginnings marriage calls on demand.
Excellent.
You can access it for a few quid. You just put a nominal fee on there. And there's coaching from Victoria and Taff as well on there. There's sessions about knowing yourself and knowing your partner. And there's a session about marriage on there that I've done. So that's accessible on the New Beginnings website under the classes section.
Okay, that's an excellent resource. So we were discussing about if the husband has abandoned the wife or has not had relations with the wife or whatever. And now there's a question here. Does this also apply if the husband has clearly stated that there will be no more relations within the marriage? Is this still considered a valid legal marriage? So basically he's sworn off having physical relations with his wife and stated that he's not going to touch her again. Is this still a marriage? Could you touch on this, please?
Yeah. So this is it's only if he swears. So this is just like a promise that is made. It doesn't mean anything really. Like I'm not going to have sex with you. So he needs to swear an oath. He needs to swear an oath that I'm not going to approach you or I'm not going to have sex with you. And then it will come under the rulings of Ilah. If he doesn't do the kafara, or take her back or approach her within that time. If he doesn't approach her within that time, then an automatic divorce will occur after 4 months.
Okay.
And when he approaches her, then he's broken his oath, and he will need to do what we call kafara, which is expiation of his oath.
So, just to sort of paraphrase, if a man says to his wife, I swear an oath that I'm never going to touch you again.
Or swear by Allah.
I swear by Allah that... Yeah, so if he were to say those words, if he were to say, quote, I swear by Allah that I'm never going to touch you again, end quote, and he doesn't pay the kafara and take her back, she is divorced.
The kafara is secondary. So unless he approaches her before 4 months pass, so it's like a timer that starts ticking. So once he said this, says, for example, he says, I swear to God, I'm not going to have sex with you.
Mm-hmm.
So once he's said this, it's like a timer that starts ticking. When 4 lunar months pass, the wife will be automatically be divorced.
Wow.
Yeah. If he doesn't come near her, if he has sex with her and approaches her, then that's fine. That timer will stop, but he will have to do kafara. He'll have to make expiation for breaking his oath.
And if he doesn't do the kafara?
It just becomes, like a debt binding upon him until he passes away.
Okay. So that will be something that will be rectified on the Day of Judgment, presumably. Yeah. Okay. There's a follow-up question in the chat then. So if it has been more than 4 months, he can only reapproach her if he does kafara?
So, it's the same thing. So 4 months pass, the divorce will happen. He needs to go and have relations with her. If he waits another 4 months, then another divorce will happen. And if he just leaves it, it will happen again, and it'll be completely over.
So this is, in effect, a way of divorcing.
Yeah, it's like a way of divorcing, but it's like connected to an oath, basically.
So, okay, so the person is asking, just to clarify, if he has said, I cannot have relations, sworn, made an oath that he cannot have relations, and it has been more than 4 months, are they still married? What you're saying is no.
They're still married, yeah.
But if it's been more than 4 months...
First of all, it's not him just saying, I cannot have relations. It needs to be done in a way that he's sworn.
So if he says, I swear by Allah that I'm
not going to approach you.
Not going to touch you.
Yeah, right. Or I'm not going to have sex with you. So it's done in a very specific way. Okay,
so just to clarify, if he says it as an oath, he swears by Allah that he's not going to do something, 4 months pass, she's divorced. They are divorced. Yeah. If he just says, I'm not going to touch you anymore, without it being an oath, that's just him talking and not being a very nice person.
Yeah, that's nothing. Okay. That doesn't count for anything.
Okay, good. Yeah. Alhamdulillah. Okay, Jazakallah khair for clarifying that. It is quite confusing. Okay. So then
just to clarify, when we say making an oath, it can be done in 2 ways. So either you use Allah's name or one of his attributes or one of his names. Some later scholars, they did allow swearing an oath using the Quran as well, on the understanding that speech is one of the attributes of Allah. But many of the early scholars said actually it's not valid or prohibited to actually swear an oath using the Quran, because you can only swear an oath with Allah or one of his names. So one of the ways you can make an oath is say, I swear by Allah, I'm going to do this. Swear by Allah, I will eat cornflakes in the morning. Let's say somebody said that verbally. If the person eats the cornflakes, then fine. They don't need to do anything that upheld their oath. No problem. If the person doesn't do what they swore they were going to do, then they have to make a kafara. They have to make an expiation for that oath.
And what is a kafara?
So kafara is it's freeing a slave,
which none of us have, presumably.
None of us can do. Yeah. Or feeding 10 poor people or clothing 10 poor people. If you can afford to do that. If not, then we need to fast 3 days in a row.
3 days, okay.
Yeah.
So, and is feeding 10 people just one day?
10 people in 1 day, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Or the one person can come back
10
to your house for 10 days. Okay. As long as they are satiated, then that's fine. The other way of making an oath is by making something conditional. So you will say, for example, if you leave the house, you are divorced. That's what we call the conditional oath. So if the wife leaves the house, then she will be divorced. Okay, so those are the 2 ways. And, you can apply that to several different scenarios. If you keep on messing about, I'm going to smack you bum. Okay, that's an oath.
So even if you don't swear by,
even if you don't swear by Allah, according to most, there are opinions. There are opinions though that mention, which some imams held, that you have to use Allah's name.
Okay.
But many said that you don't have to use Allah's name because it's just implied. It's not like implied. But the opinion that you have to use Allah's name, I guess that's easier for people.
Jazakallah khair. So there is another question here. This is actually one of our convert brothers in Islam sent this question in. My wife is not listening to me and is often verbally abusive. I want to divorce her. We don't have children yet, but her mother told me, and her mother is, his wife is a heritage Muslim. His mother-in-law is a heritage Muslim. Mm-hmm. Her mother told me that divorcing a woman for no reason makes Allah angry so much that his throne shakes. I'm very depressed as I don't want to anger Allah, but her attitude is harming my mental health. Am I allowed to divorce her, or is her mother correct?
Well, there's no narration that mentions that.
Is there any narration that mentions that divorce angers Allah so much that his throne shakes? Because we hear it a lot.
There's the narration about the woman who asked for divorce without any reason. There is that narration. I'll try to find it actually whilst I'm talking to find the grading of it. There is one that's often quoted, which scholars have declared as weak, because the meaning doesn't really make sense. So it says, Abghad al-halal inda Allahi at-talaq, that the most hated of halal things with Allah is divorce. So that narration is weak, a weak narration.
Okay.
And also the meaning is, it doesn't really make sense. How can something be halal but hated to Allah?
It doesn't make sense.
No sense whatsoever.
Interesting. So this statement that this brother's mother-in-law has given him is not true.
No, I've not come across that.
So in this case
she shouldn't feel guilty. Ultimately, there is a reason here. If it's detrimental to his mental health, is that not a reason enough? To issue a divorce? If he's not happy in the marriage, if it's causing him stress, is that not enough? Yeah, I found the narration. أيما امرأة سألت زوجها الطلاق من غير بأس فحرام عليها رائحة الجنة. So it's any woman that asks her husband for divorce without any reason, without there being any harm involved, then the scent of heaven is prohibited for her.
That's not. So, yes. Okay.
There is a discussion amongst scholars. Many scholars did find that to be a valid sound narration. It's mentioned in Abu Dawood and at-Tirmidhi.
But then we could also ask about this. What does not having any reason mean?
Yeah.
So, because that is possibly open to interpretation as well, isn't it?
Yeah, but then there were other scholars who questioned the authenticity of it as well.
Okay, interesting.
They basically say that there are the supporting evidence actually that makes it stronger. So that's what they're saying. So again, it goes back to what's the intention behind it. And generally, women find that they won't just ask for a divorce if there is any reason to divorce. So this hadith is clearly speaking about something else, that she is asking for divorce for some type of nefarious intention. Maybe, in order to get meher out of the husband, or, there's some other, ulterior motives, but there's actually nothing wrong with the marriage. But maybe she likes somebody else and she's trying to get out of it. I don't know. It's for those reasons. So that's how we should understand the hadith. But we find in most cases, there's, something has. If somebody's asking for a divorce, something has happened. It's very rarely that it's going to be for no reason, or for some other, financial reasons or whatever.
You do on occasion meet people who just as sort of a personality trait, they will throw words like that around quite lightly. They'll say, "Oh, you don't like my cooking? Fine, divorce me." Or even the men will be, "Oh, I don't like what you're doing. Careful, or I'll divorce you." And they're very easygoing about these words. And most people are not like this. Most people most people who call themselves Muslims fear Allah to a degree that they're careful about their words. But you do find people who are just blasé. So maybe that's what this is referring to, rather than.
Yeah, maybe. I think it's more because it says she asked her husband for divorce. It's quite severe, she won't smell the scent of heaven.
Very.
So there has to be some type of really serious, evil, nefarious intention. If the hadith is valid for that to happen.
So to this brother, he doesn't need to worry. There is no such hadith.
To worry.
If he really does need to divorce his wife, he can do so without feeling guilty about it.
Exactly.
If all other avenues have been exhausted, obviously. Okay.
There's absolutely no sin on the person whatsoever to initiate divorce in these circumstances.
Okay. Alhamdulillah. The next question is a very modern question. Is it valid to divorce via email, text message, WhatsApp, and so on?
Yes. Yes, with a caveat.
Yes, but okay. What's the caveat?
According to the four schools, yes, they all allow written type of divorce. However, it has to be addressed to the person being divorced. So it needs to be addressed or go straight to her inbox or whatever, nobody else. So it needs to be addressed to the person being divorced, and it needs intention as well. So it needs to be done intentionally, which we'll only know, if we ask the husband. So if it's written, the upshot is if it's written, it needs intention, yeah.
So if it's written...
There is an opinion in the Shafi school, though, that written divorce does not count.
Okay. So that would depend on what the person is normally following.
To say it won't count, it doesn't matter what he intends. If it's written, it won't count.
Okay. So then my follow-up question to this would be, if somebody issues a divorce written, and the recipient doesn't receive it immediately, does the iddah start? Does the waiting period after divorce start upon receipt or upon sending?
Receipt.
Okay.
So they need to.
They need to know.
It needs to reach them or be written to them directly.
Okay.
If it's addressed to them or sent directly to them, then it won't matter.
Okay.
So I don't know how that would work in the digital, framework. If it's sent directly to her mobile, and nobody else has that mobile, it's got her name on it, and it could be immediate, even if she doesn't know about it. So with divorce, the wife doesn't need to know for it to be effective. That's another thing. So she could be on the other side of the world. He could be alone in a room and say, "I've divorced my wife." And even if she doesn't know, she's really straight into her waiting period. So it's quite serious. It's not a game for any men that are listening. It's not something that you joke around with or you play around with. It's something very, very serious.
Follow-up question to that then. If a woman is divorced and she is in her iddah, what things is she prohibited from doing that she would normally be able to do? And obviously, if she doesn't know that she's in her iddah, is she accountable for that?
Yeah, if she doesn't know. So for those who don't know what the iddah is, the Quran says that divorced women, they are supposed to wait with themselves for 3 menstrual cycles. Okay? And this is what we call iddah in Arabic. So if the woman is menstruating, again, more misconceptions that I've heard people saying, well, you just wait 3 months afterwards. No, it's not 3 months. It's 3 menstrual cycles, which could last a half a year, even, or a year. Women that have lasted a whole year just to have 3 periods. So it's 3 periods, as the Quran mentions, and they are supposed to stay at home, in the marital home, with the husband providing maintenance for them. So they really shouldn't leave the house without a necessity. If the woman is pregnant and the divorce has been issued, then her iddah, her waiting period, is when she gives birth. So there are different waiting periods. If the woman is menopausal, then her waiting period is 3 lunar months. Okay, so just to clear that up. Now there are different iddahs. So if he has just divorced her once, it's what we call like a small separation divorce or revocable divorce, where he can take her back. Then the only thing prohibited from her is really leaving the house without necessity. If she needs to go out, then she can go out, that's fine. But even here, with this type of divorce, she can beautify herself in front of her husband, and that's fine. If it is what we call a major separation type of divorce, where he has divorced her 3 times and there's no way of them getting back together, then she needs to seclude herself from the husband. Some say that, you can bring another woman into the house with her to stay with her, so she's not alone anytime with the husband, because there's no way they can get back together. There needs to be some type of separation between her and the husband, and she wouldn't, beautify herself in front of the husband, etc., in order to reconcile. The other type is the widow. So the waiting period for widow is different as well. So the waiting period for widow is 4 months and 10 days. Okay, so there's no menstrual cycles. It's just 4 lunar months and 10 days, regardless, for widows. And for the widow, she does what's called ihdad. So ihdad means that she won't leave the house unless there's a need to do so. But she also won't wear any makeup, any colourful clothing, any perfume, and so on. So some call it like a mourning or whatever. But there are certain other things that she needs to avoid whilst in that state. And also, in terms of proposals, for the woman who's not a widow, she's been divorced, for divorcees, any type of proposals are not allowed, and for the widow as well. Direct proposals will not be allowed. Sending interest. So sending interest will be allowed for the widow only, according to some imams. According to the Hanafi school, it's for the widow only. You could send your interest. So you might send some flowers or say, look, I know your husband's just passed away, but a couple of months ago, I'm interested in you. That's not a direct proposal for a marriage. In the Shafi school, if she has been divorced majorly, like 3 times, and there's no way of getting back, they do allow you to send interest. So you could send some flowers or some chocolates just to register your interest and join the queue early.
This actually brings a very interesting question of a case that somebody asked me about a couple of years ago. It was a sister who had been living apart from her husband for about 10 years. They had agreed not to divorce because of what will people say, but it had been 10 years. There was no reconciliation happening, and he had finally agreed to give her talaq, basically. They had agreed mutually to divorce. She was already, and I quote, engaged to another man before he even gave her the talaq, because they had been separated for 10 years and she had already taken up with somebody else. Now, this is a Muslim woman, but not terribly practicing. And she was put in touch with me so that I could ask somebody, probably yourself or somebody similar, the question of, does she still need to do her iddah? Because she just wants to hurry up and marry this guy. And I remember the reply coming back being quite strict, that, he's only given you 1 talaq. This is the only talaq you've ever had. You are still his wife until that iddah finishes, until that 3 menstrual cycles finishes. Then you can marry who you want. But the fact that she had already established with somebody else a compatibility and wanting to get married and all of this,
it gets very messy.
It's very messy, isn't it? Yes.
But I think in that scenario, if he gave the divorce, when did he give her the divorce? At what point in the 10 years?
No. They had been separated for 10 years. And at the end of 10 years, he gave her one single talaq, and she had just started her iddah. So it was like the day before she called me, she had been given the talaq finally.
Right, yeah.
And he was already remarried as well. He had availed himself of the fact that he can have more than one wife, and she was stuck. So she was trying to get herself unstuck, and unfortunately she couldn't, but yes.
Yeah.
But,
so what activities are considered a necessity for leaving home during the iddah period? For example, a young woman with children is taking the children out for activities considered a necessity. Yeah, of course it is. Yeah, the children, they can't stay indoors for souls, all day. Taking children out, she needs to do the shopping, she needs to visit relatives,
daily life,
go to a funeral prayer, those type of things. She needs to work, if the husband's not financially providing for her. So, all of those things are necessities.
What about if he is financially providing for her, but she has a job that she would lose if she didn't go to work for 3 months?
Yeah, exactly. So she can't lose her job as well. Otherwise, after the iddah finishes, what's she going to do? He's not going to be, so if she needs to do that, then she needs to do that. She needs to exercise. It's not only if it's frivolous activities.
Okay.
If she says, I'm just going to meet up with my friends, and go for coffee, and that's not a necessity. I'm going to go watch a movie or something. That's not a necessity.
Fair enough. Okay. So just in the last few minutes that we have here, if you could clarify something, and I hope that we can get it done in a few minutes. If a man gives his wife one talaq, he can take her back during her waiting period. But if her waiting period finishes, can he take her back, or they have to remarry?
Yeah, it's a good question. So once the waiting period finishes, he cannot take her back.
He cannot.
Unilaterally.
Okay.
He can't take her back, no.
So what would they have to do if they agree that they want to get back together?
Yeah, so they would need to do a new marriage with witnesses and a new method, and start again.
Okay. And that's also true if he's given her a second talaq?
Yes.
If he's given her a third talaq?
No.
Nothing. No way, no how?
No.
Okay.
So it's a free strikes and you're out rule.
Okay.
Basically.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. Jazakallah khair to everybody who's been listening and writing in their questions and sending in their questions. We have come to the end of our time, but just one closing question, because obviously as you did say this in response to a couple of questions, that a lot is based on the individual circumstances and you need to look at the bigger picture. Who are the best people to approach for this, in your view? And do you have any organizations in particular that you would recommend people get in touch with if they need help or if they need further information or they have particular questions that can't be answered on a podcast?
Yeah, it's such a difficult issue in the UK. You have to get all of the details. For example, years ago, there was a sister who came to me, she messaged, she said, my husband's divorced me, and she's in tears, and he's divorced me. I'm like, oh my God, I'm like, what did he say? And she said, he said this. And I said, that's not divorce.
What did he say?
He basically said, if you don't do this, then I will divorce you. He made a threat of divorce. So he basically made a threat of divorce, which he understood to mean was actually divorce occurring, which it wasn't from the Sharia viewpoint. Sometimes you look at the original contract as well. If the husband's refusing. This happened recently with a convert sister. She said, this guy's, being abusive to me, and, he's, I want a divorce for him, and he won't give me a divorce. So I said, let me, see she had a video of her nikah ceremony. And I was like, my opinion is that it's not a valid nikah, but you should go and ask. I said, go and ask some of the imams to see what they think. And she asked them and they said the same thing.
So she was never married in the first place?
She was never actually married in the first place because of the jahil of, the jahil, ignorance of the person actually doing the marriage. And there was no wali involved or anything. And it's in a mosque with 2 witnesses, but, it was the wording that they used was all incorrect. It was totally incorrect to be a valid nikah. So, yeah, go to specialists. I would say to ask different imams who you trust, you believe are qualified, and, try to get a different answer. And that will give you options as well.
For converts who don't have access to imams because they're not members of certain communities, or they aren't living near mosques, that's not just for converts, that's for anybody who doesn't live near a Muslim community, can't necessarily access this, or doesn't know who's trustworthy. We do have, as we've said on one of our previous episodes, a lot of people convert as a response to being in a relationship with a Muslim person, and off the back of getting married to that Muslim person. And they may not have had the opportunity to establish themselves as Muslims and build their Islamic knowledge before they're faced with these issues.
Yeah.
But there are organizations. So, if somebody were to get in touch with, say, their local Sharia council, there are Sharia councils in London, Birmingham, Manchester, Leicester.
Ask around,
people for recommendations.
Look for credentials. If you feel that something is off or it doesn't sound right, then try to find somewhere else. It is difficult. And
but be willing to talk to people is what I would say. Be willing to ask, be willing to call up. If you have friends, if you know other brothers or other sisters who have been through a divorce, ask them what their experiences were, get recommendations.
Exactly, yeah. This isn't something about wudu or wudu's not important or zakat. This is your family. This is quite a serious issue. So, try to access serious people before making a judgment.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And of course, if you are experiencing any kind of harmful treatment, such as physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, or financial abuse, not just Sharia councils, seek professional intervention if you need to. The most important thing is your safety above and beyond everything else.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
Okay. Jazakallah khair for everybody's input today, and to Sheikh Bilal for tackling this topic that is very complicated. And it is very hard to simplify it. We've tried to make it easy, but it's not an easy topic, subhanAllah. So
it's not an easy topic, yeah. And we spend, years and years studying it and, trying to simplify it in a couple of hours. It's not possible.
Absolutely, yeah. But as always, if you do have any questions or any comments, you can get in touch with us.
So all of our social medias at Beginnings UK.
At Beginnings.
At Beginnings with you. Yeah, whether it's TikTok or Instagram or Facebook.
Okay.
You will send my Ma'rifah Institute number as well, which I'll put in the podcast.
Excellent. Okay.
Notes. If people want to message, if you have questions regarding divorce, then you can get in touch with me directly via that number.
Okay, excellent. Jazakumullah khair. And assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum.
That's it for another episode of the New Beginnings podcast. We do hope you enjoyed this episode. Please share on social media and with family and friends.
Yes, please do share and subscribe. We're on all major podcast platforms. Inshallah, we'll see you next time.
I look forward to it, but for now, thank you for listening.
Until next time, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.